Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, she's gone. The president has finally fired Nobuhle Nkabane as Minister of Higher Education following her belligerent attitude towards Parliament. But does that mean she can't be held accountable for the so-called lies she told to Parliament about the appointment of SETA board chairpersons? Well, the chair of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Tebogo Letsie, joins us tonight. Also on the show, why did the Health Department appoint 8 ANC Youth League leaders to the boards of Gauteng's public hospitals here in Gauteng? Are all these youth leaders qualified to sit on these boards, and do they bring the requisite experience to help steer this critical health system? We speak to the ANC Youth League's Provincial Secretary, Mpume Sangweni. And then later, is the country at a crossroads with all that's happening with the GNU, the threat to our national security, with all these top SAPS officials throwing allegations against each other, and ministers who show Parliament the middle finger? How do we navigate these waters? ANC veteran Maharaj joins us tonight. But first, my comment. So, President Cyril Ramaphosa has finally fired Higher Education Minister Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane. She has shown terrible attitude towards Parliament. She has shown Parliament the middle finger, really, if we're being honest. She has shown the President the middle finger in the rest of South Africa. When you look at her behavior over the last couple of weeks and months, the President has now acted against her.
President Ramaphosa has removed Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane from the role of Minister of Higher Education and has, in terms of Section 91(2) of the Constitution, appointed Mr. Buti Manamela, the Minister of Higher Education. Mr. Manamela was, until this appointment, serving as Deputy Minister of Higher Education, a role he held from the 6th administration. Consequently, the President has, in terms of Section 93(1)b of the Constitution, appointed Dr. Nomusa Dube, Deputy Minister of Higher Education. Dr. Dube's long government leadership experience includes serving as MEC for Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs, as well as the Premier of the Province of KwaZulu-Natal, amongst other roles. Section 93(1)b empowers the President to appoint no more than 2 Deputy Ministers from outside the National Assembly.
Now, let's remind you of what happened and give you some context. Let's take a few steps back. So, Minister Nkabane appointed board chairpersons of SETAs, if you remember. The list of her appointment was leaked, revealing that she has appointed Gwede Mantashe's son and Gwede Mantashe's advisor as board chairpersons of 2 of the SETAs. Now, what was curious about these appointments was that the list was riddled with politicians. She had appointed to the boards of these SETAs these politicians. Curiously, though, she appointed Mantashe's son and Mantashe's advisor. And do you remember which ministry she worked in before she became the Higher Education Minister? She worked with Gwede Mantashe. She was Mantashe's deputy at Mineral Resources. And after being promoted to Minister of Higher Education, she appoints Mantashe's son and advisor as board chairs. Is that a coincidence? Perhaps. She's tried to defend the appointments. In fact, when she was asked tough questions, she withdrew the appointments of the board chairpersons. She said that the decision to withdraw follows calls for greater transparency. But she wasn't off the hook just yet. Parliament wanted to know who advised her to make such appointments. And she claimed that it was an independent panel, and she was asked for the names of the independent panel members, and she was refusing to disclose them until pressure mounted.
So it is not compulsory for me to disclose the independent assessor, the independent panel that is assisting the minister. I'll first find out from them, get consent, if they are happy that I disclose their names. I cannot just come here and disclose information. I need to comply with the relevant legislation. I'm not going to respond to yes or no, unfortunately.
That was her attitude in Parliament. In fact, it was a legal opinion that advised her to release the names. Do you remember this moment when she appeared in Parliament?
In your own view, Minister, what makes a person credible? When you say this one, Tebogo Chair, is credible or is not credible, what makes him credible in your own view? Minister?
What makes a person credible, Chair, is exactly how it is defined when you Google. By encyclopedia, you'll see what it means. It's exactly that.
You are not going to answer us. You are not going to answer us, Minister.
I've responded, Chairperson.
I mean, South Africans and even the president were clearly disappointed by her behavior, her belligerent attitude towards Parliament. The president even called her out and asked her to explain herself. When she finally disclosed the list of the so-called independent panel, it turned out to be not to be an independent panel because among the names are Department of Higher Education staff members, which raises the question about their independence. And the minister claims that the chair of the so-called independent inquiry was Advocate Terry Mutau, but that was a lie because Advocate Mutau came out publicly to say he didn't chair the panel as claimed by the minister. He said the minister intended to appoint him as chair of the committee, but that never materialized. So he was surprised that suddenly the minister is including his name on the list of panel members. What happened then is the minister apologized again, because she was forced to apologize publicly to Advocate Mutau for any inconvenience and reputational discomfort or misunderstandings that may have arisen. Because she was caught lying and exposed, she had to apologize. She misrepresented Advocate Mutau's role because she could clearly see that without the advocate's name, that panel was never going to pass the test of independence. I mean, even her own chief of staff, whose name was included on the list of the panel members, distanced herself and said she wasn't part of the panel. Now listen to the DDG at the Department of Higher Education, who was in Parliament today, who said to the committee in Parliament that as the secretary of this SETA panel, she never called any meetings and never participated in any meeting.
If there were no meetings, how did we get to those names, according to your understanding, as someone who has experience and has been dealing with this thing in the department?
Like I would have mentioned, the tricky part or the difficulty or the thin line would have been panel member and then advisor on the side.
So there was some confusion going on there.
I would not say confusion. I did not mention...
Please characterize it, sir.
That is why I've characterized it that there is a thin line. That is my characterization of it. It's not.
Okay.
So
let me move, honorable member, respectfully. So, if you could clarify as well, did you play any role in the approval process of nominees? It's a yes or no kind of a question.
And unfortunately, member, I would have to respond, and please allow me to do that. I think if the panel have not said to convene and recommend, and so it means that that part is out. Secondly, the question of approval of names is solo on the powers given by the Skills Act to the minister. So it's a minister that would have approved names. I do not have the capacity to approve names.
So the reality is that there was clearly no panel here. We've been lied to. If there was, there would have been meetings. There would have been minutes of those meetings, and the minister wouldn't have misrepresented people's names and roles. And then you have the ANC's Secretary General trying to defend these lies.
Crucially, when appearing before Parliament, the minister clearly stated that Advocate Mutau had not attended any of the panel's meetings. This is a decisive piece of information which directly rebuts any allegation of deceit or misrepresentation. Had the minister intended to fabricate or exaggerate Advocate Mutau's role, she would not have made this transparent and clarifying statement. This detail proves that there was no intent to mislead Parliament, and certainly no malice. Upon becoming aware of the error, the minister promptly apologized to Parliament and issued a formal written apology to Advocate Mutau, personally and in public, acknowledging the mistake and correcting the record.
I mean, how do you defend that? Even the ANC chief whip in Parliament, Mpume Sangweni, was on the show, and he said the minister has messed up here. He's misrepresented information to Parliament and has to be held accountable. And then you've got the SG of the ANC trying to defend that. And even the minister herself, when she was being held accountable, she claimed that people were being misogynistic.
You know, when you are against transformation, it irritates a lot when you see a young woman leading such a huge ministry in your presence. It's misogyny. I understand it. I know where it is coming from. And whereas when it is a black woman, it becomes irritational.
No, it's never been about people being misogynistic. It's also just been about accountability. The question we're asking you tonight is, now that the minister has been fired, should she still be held accountable? And what do you think that looks like? You can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 078-459-1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. After the break, we'll speak to the chair of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education following their deliberations about this very issue in Parliament earlier today. Stay with us. Welcome back. The chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Tebogo Letsie, joins me now via video link. Tebogo, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement, and good evening to the listeners of Face the Nation, and thanks for having us.
So there seems to be differences among members of Parliament as to how to move forward now that the minister has been fired by the president. How did the deliberations go today in the committee, and what's the way forward?
Yeah, so at the beginning, legal had informed us that because the minister, there's a new dynamic, the minister is no longer the minister, the president would have exercised his right and removed the minister. They were advising that we don't continue this particular query. This particular query was to find out if the minister misled Parliament by saying there was an independent panel, and that independent panel is the one that gave her the list of 21 names to consider for chairpersons. So that was the first part. And they said they don't see how it's going to help us, but what we can continue with is her role in the appointment of the 21 SETA board. That one we can hold her accountable even when she's no longer the Minister of Higher Education. We deliberated on the matter. Members felt that we must continue with the interrogation of the panelists. We agreed we continued with the interrogation. Remember that we had two last week, Friday, started with Mpume Sangweni, followed by Advocate Mutau, and then today we had TDG Nobuhle Nkabane, we had Chief of Staff Simane, and we have the advisor Solane, who all gave the account of what role they played. So what came out clear that Clement is that all of them agree that there was never even a single meeting that sat, which means that there was no panel, whether independent or not, but there was no panel that would have sat and advised the minister on this particular issue. So that's what we would have found. We have not yet had an opportunity to give the minister the right to reply, to give us her own version and the facts from her files. We don't have that. I want to state it clearly that from what we have received, this is what we have.
Okay, so based on the information you've received from all these crucial players that you spoke to today as the committee, what's clear is that this minister did lie about this independent panel.
Yes, without getting her side of the story, it clearly shows that what she told us is not true.
So this former minister was doing interviews earlier today, and she claimed that she has evidence to prove that she didn't lie. Does that evidence now become useful in the ethics committee, or is it evidence that you can use as you continue with this probe as the higher education committee?
We're putting together a report of what we have, and then we're going to present it back to members to check if it covers everything that we have covered so far, and then members will decide what do we do. So they can decide that we open an ethics thing ourselves, or we continue, we bring the minister to get a side of the story, so that if we decide to take it to ethics or powers, privileges and immunities committee, we then have a balanced full report, but it will depend on what the committee will decide after receiving the report.
Okay, but now that you have clearly seen from the evidence and from the people that have appeared before the committee, you see that she has lied, will that be in your report at the end of this probe? So when you finalize this probe around the appointment of SETA chairpersons, that forms part of the report?
When I closed the meeting today and summarized the views of the members, I did indicate that it is clear that there was never a panel. It is clear that there may have been an intention to put a panel together because members of who were there all had received letters appointing them to some panel that never convened, not clear terms of reference on who was supposed to do what. In fact, if you listen from Friday, you'll realize that this panel would have had two chairpersons. Nobuhle Nkabane was given a letter around the 7th of March, appointing him as chairperson, and Advocate Terry Motau was given a letter around the 15th or 16th of March, appointing him as the chairperson as well. And none of these other members knew about these letters of chairpersons, except DDG Rulani Ngwenya, who said, as the secretary, she was told that the chairperson is Advocate Terry Motau.
But even that DDG, who was in the committee today, said that she never attended a single meeting of the so-called independent panel. In fact, as the secretary of the panel, she should have been the one to call for these meetings and schedule them, isn't it?
Yeah, she did indicate that she was never, because of the terms of reference were not clear, she didn't know how to convene a meeting, whether it was her or the chairperson was supposed to. So there were clear, blurry signs. What is worrying here is that there was a report that was presented to the National Skills Authority, and this report, to us, it was reported as a report of these people who, all five of them, including the DDG, were supposed to be a secretary of this panel, indicated that they were never called to a meeting. They never called any meeting. That is, for us, the biggest worry. And if the former minister does have proof, I think it will assist us to have that particular proof of these meetings that would have said.
Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting proof, because all these people are coming out and saying we were never part of these meetings, which again proves that there was no panel at all. What are the lessons here, Tebogo? And maybe if you can just explain to your viewers why this is so important. I mean, ministers have to account to Parliament. Parliament is constitutionally obligated to hold them accountable. If they lie, which this minister has done, it's clear from the evidence, as you say, from the people that have appeared before the committee. What are the consequences?
Yeah, this process is very important because committees we represent Parliament. And the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Section 92, subsection 2, indicates that ministers individually and collectively are accountable to Parliament, and we must hold them accountable. We must remember that as parliamentarians, we represent the millions of our people out there, the destitute, those who can't speak for themselves, who ought to speak for them. We are being paid through their taxes. The ministers are also being paid through their tax. So it's very important that this part is clear, that everybody must be held accountable for the roles that they play. If it's found that somebody has misled Parliament, we do have Powers, Privileges and Immunities Act from Chapter 4 up until Chapter 17, subsection 2, that speaks about those who mislead Parliament, who are found guilty by what we are doing here. They need to, Section 17, subsection 2 indicates that people can actually go to jail for up to 3 years, or they are liable to a fine. So that, it's very important, because if we don't have these things, we're going to become a banana republic where people can just do as they please and then nothing happens. So it's very important that when we close this matter, we send a message to everybody that, you are supposed to do things right. And by the way, the minister, when we closed the meeting again today, we indicated that Section 11, Section 11(1)(a) of the Skills Development Act empowers the minister to appoint the SETA board chairperson. So there was no need, if there was no panel, like we're learning now, there was no need for the minister to say there was a panel. She could have simply said, I had appointed these people, I take full responsibility, and we're starting the process afresh. We'll do better next time. It could have been acceptable, because that's what the Act says, but the minister would have created impression that she's created an extra mechanism, and that extra mechanism is the one that failed, and that is why I think the panelists came out and said they are not part of that particular thing.
Yeah, well, clearly she wasn't prepared to also try and justify Gwede Mantashe's son and advisor and all the other politicians that were on that list. She wanted this panel to take some kind of responsibility. Well, Tebogo, thank you for speaking to us. That's the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Tebogo Letsie. We've been asking you the question around what should be the next steps. Now that the president has fired Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, what must be done to still hold her accountable? Let's start with your tweets. Nobuhle says, I think the former minister must still be held to account. She made those appointments as a minister of the state, which means she was exercising public power. In addition, she remains a member of parliament, which makes her a public representative. That is important. Mafiki Zolo says, we now need to know who came up with these names. She needs to be withdrawn from parliament. Nobuhle says, public officials must be held accountable even after leaving office to maintain transparency and trust. If SETA appointments under her leadership raise legal, ethical, or procedural concerns, investigations should continue, regardless of her investigation. And speaking of investigations, one wonders, what is the ANC going to do? The Secretary General of the party was trying to defend her. What happens now? Because the chief whip of the ANC in Parliament says she sent out a report to the ANC and said, this person has misrepresented Parliament, and clearly there should be action taken. And then you've got the SG trying to defend her. So what is the ANC itself going to do to hold its deployee accountable? That's what we looked forward to seeing. Here are some of the WhatsApp voice notes that have come through.
Season of glory, greetings, Mr. Clement. Yeah, indeed, we are living in exciting times. Could it be that the president fired the minister so that she's off the hook? One wonders. But I think the Portfolio Committee of Higher Education should not let this go. They're on the right track. Let them take her to book and make her accountable. Sure.
Hey, Clement, this is Binza, sorry, from the Northwest, Klerksdorp. I think she must be held accountable because she lied. She misled Parliament and she misled the whole country. She must be held accountable. Being fired from the position doesn't mean that she shouldn't. They must fetch him wherever she is. Please.
Thank you so much for your WhatsApp voice notes. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Now, controversy has erupted in Gauteng hospitals following allegations of cronyism in the appointment of ANC Youth League leaders to hospital boards. Reports at the weekend indicate that 8 ANC Youth League leaders were appointed to boards of public hospitals in the province, sparking concerns of cronyism and their ability to oversee critical healthcare institutions. We speak now to Mpume Sangweni, who is the ANC Youth League Provincial Secretary, to get insights into these appointments. Mpume, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Evening, Clement, and evening to the viewers.
Yeah, let's start maybe with confirming the number of ANC Youth League leaders that have been appointed to these different boards.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. In actual fact, we have around 10 ANC Youth League members.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of that 10 ANC Youth League members, 8 of them are in the Provincial Executive Committee. One is in the Regional Executive Committee of Johannesburg, and then the other one is also a regional leader in Tshwane as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have around 10 members.
Yeah, so how did 10 members, or let's say 8 who are in the PEC, happen to be appointed to these boards? I mean, was this something that was discussed in the PEC meeting, that there's these openings, let's all apply and allow for the committees to decide where they allocate us?
No, definitely. We share information around any opportunities that are available on our PEC group, and we encourage our members to apply. And many of them did apply, just as they've applied as well for the Gauteng Youth Advisory Panel. In actual fact, in that panel of the Premier, we have around 8 members as well. In fact, we have 4 members, one whom we just lost recently through a tragic accident. So we do share these things on our WhatsApp group, and this is in line actually with the 26th National Congress resolutions that all young people must occupy corridors of power. And we understand that this is also an opportunity as well to gain experience and to be better administrators as well.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously there are no issues if these are people who have the requisite experience. Out of these 8 people who are from the PEC who have been appointed to the board, are they qualified to sit on them? In other words, I mean, you know about the challenges of public hospitals and how they've been struggling. So you need people with the requisite experience necessary to help steer this critical healthcare system.
Yeah, if you check the advert calls for people with different skills and expertise in different fields, from HR, finance, governance, strategic management, and even community leaders are also encouraged to apply as well. So with all our members who have been appointed, they all meet those inherent board requirements. And fortunately, they managed to be part of the boards and they were appointed. And if you check their CVs, you know, all of them, they meet the job advertisement requirements, you know. So the story, we view it as it is our considered view that it's not really about the board appointments, you know. It is our considered view that this has everything to do with the imminent cabinet reshuffle that the Premier will be making very soon, so that it discredits the ANC Youth League, and then the view that the young person must form part of the executive authority prevails. So it has nothing to do with these board appointments. If there was anything to do with these board appointments, maybe the same outcry would have been as well with the advisory panel.
So the Premier will be reshuffling his cabinet?
We are lobbying for the Premier to reshuffle his cabinet.
Okay, are you still lobbying for it, or are you saying he will do it?
Yeah, it's in the pipelines. It's in the pipelines. It's going to happen.
And you want him to appoint some of the...
the resolution of the 15th Provincial Congress says that the provincial chairperson of the ANC Youth League must form part of the executive authority.
So here's why this story has ruffled some feathers. You know about what Nobuhle Nkabane has done, right? He has appointed just politically, people that are politically linked to the ANC to the board chairpersons of SETAs. And when she was asked about what process she had actually followed, she wasn't able to explain that. In fact, she went further and lied about an independent panel that supposedly helped him, that supposedly helped her decide. So that's why it's important for us to figure out if the people who've been appointed actually have the requisite experience. Now, help me here. The advert for the board nomination stipulates that applicants must be professionals with expertise in legal, in finance, in management, governance, medicine, or health-related backgrounds. Can you confirm that all of these 8 PEC members have qualifications, so postgraduate qualifications?
Let's start here. All these members are members of the community first before they are PEC members, you know. And they so happen that they are leading the ANC Youth League. You know, I don't think the advertisement called for or asked for any political affiliation. If you check out of the 220 board members that were appointed, you'd find DA members there, you'd find EFF members there, you'd even find the clergy there from different faith-based
Have you seen
organizations.
members of other parties appointed to these
Yes,
boards?
we attended, we went to oversee or look at the induction to check who's appointed there. And we found that members of the DA, members of the EFF are there, the clergy is there, even traditional healers are there.
So members of the EFF, is this leaders of the EFF?
Yeah, it's members of the EFF.
Yeah, so I'm talking about leaders because in this case, that's why I'm not talking about 10 ANC Youth League members, right? I'm talking about 8 because that is the PEC.
Yes.
So when you say members of the EFF, are they leaders of the EFF? Do they hold any position?
Yeah,
in
they
the party?
lead obviously structures of the EFF, but not at the provincial level or regional level. They lead in different
Okay, so they're not the same as you guys, right?
Yeah, so,
okay.
But what we must clarify is this thing of ANC Youth League members as if they are isolated from the community, you know. They were appointed based on the criteria that we've just mentioned now in different skills.
Yeah, and I want to understand now if, because, and again, this is not to say that at ANC Youth League leaders, you must not be given opportunities. Where you qualify, you've got the experience.
Definitely.
You should. But we live in a country and we've got a party, your organization, that has abused these processes before. You know about them. They've abused the processes before. So it's important that we make sure that this is not only done to just dish out positions to the ANC Youth League leaders. So what I'm asking is, can you confirm that all of these ANC Youth League PEC members, like, do they have qualifications?
Yeah, they do have.
So my understanding is that there's one person who doesn't.
There's only one person who does not have the qualification.
So how did
in
they
terms
make
of
it?
No, remember the advert says you also community leaders can apply, you know. So that person under that category, then they form part of the advertisement. So if you check out of the 8, all of us have some form of formal education. It's only one member. That member also forms part of the category that says community leader. You know, because remember a
but
hospital
what experience
board,
does it? Because I could raise my hand and say I'm a community leader, but what expertise and experience am I bringing to the board of a public hospital? How am I going to help?
Yeah, remember the function of a board is to guide the management of the hospital and to bridge a gap between the hospital management and the community.
So there must still be an understanding of the health system.
Exactly,
right?
but not just the health system. Not just the health system. Even as a community leader, your responsibility, for example, our communities have been complaining that their complaints are not taken seriously and all those things. So if you are a community leader, you know how to engage. Your stakeholder relations or stakeholder management skills are better off than a person who had studied finance, you know. So that is why you then find that one leader, and it's not just one leader of the PEC Youth League, of the ANC Youth League. If you check everyone out of the 220 members who were appointed, let's go and check their CVs. You'd still find other community leaders there. So we don't understand why.
So what experience does your leader bring? So the PEC member who is from the community, you're saying, right? What experience does he bring? Because again, not only the fact that they're saying that you could be a member of a community doesn't mean any
it's
community
just a random,
member just gets it. What experience does this one bring to help deal with the struggles in our public hospitals?
So, for instance, I've just explained now that, when you're a community leader, your stakeholder management skills are much advanced than an ordinary community member, So, for instance, that person will obviously be dealing with issues of stakeholder management in the board to advise how the hospital to manage better their relations.
What does she understand about the public health system?
No,
Does she
definitely.
have any experience in that?
Yeah, because you'd find that once or twice she has interacted with the hospital, we believe, because the advertisement says that you need to be apply at a hospital that is within your community. So we are assuming that that leader has obviously interacted with the hospital, has obviously have interacted with the community, understands the perceptions of the community towards the hospital. So they'll be mainly dealing with the stakeholder relation between the hospital and the community. So that is why it is important that in boards you don't only have people who are academically qualified, but you also need people that have soft skills. You also need people that are able to manage other non-core functions of the hospital.
As long as they bring value to the hospital.
As long as they bring value.
Understand the system on top of stakeholder management.
Indeed.
Because that's not all that they're going to do. And you need to manage stakeholders, understanding very well the sector that you're in.
Indeed.
But as you say, Mpume, all of these people, 8 of them are qualified. They've got expertise in all these fields that I mentioned, including the one that doesn't have qualifications.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much for coming through and speaking to us.
No, thank you very much.
That's Mpume Sangweni, who is the ANC Youth League's Provincial Secretary. After the break, we'll speak to Maharaj. Remember him? The ANC veteran who's going to help us navigate these difficult waters that South Africa finds itself in. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. Now, South Africa finds itself at a critical moment as it navigates the complexities of a government of national unity. We're grappling with threats to national security, and we're facing tensions between elected officials and parliamentary accountability. So the country is also set to hold the National Dialogue next month, which aims to define the country's vision for the next 30 years and help shape the next chapter of our democracy. To unpack some of these difficult issues and chart a way forward is ANC veteran Maharaj, who joins us now in studio. Mr. Maharaj, thank you so much for your time. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
I want to begin perhaps with issues that the country finds itself deliberating over this evening. Issues of accountability on the part of members of the executive, for instance. Issues, state security, the infighting within the SAPS. I mean, this is all happening ahead of the national dialogue that the presidency announced. How do you assess where we find ourselves in this country right now?
I think we are at a critical moment. I think there is enough diagnosis of the problems that we face. There is actually no dialogue about the solutions. That is where we have major differences which prevent us from moving forward. And I think that there are many measures that are needed to address these issues, but I think that the national dialogue fits into that broader scheme. My concern, of course, is are we addressing these matters systematically? Because I don't expect the problems that we face capable of a one-off solution. I think the accumulation of the problems of the 30 years tells us we need to learn from the mistakes that have occurred.
Yeah.
Because I think you learn better from your mistakes rather than from your achievements. However, the diagnosis of the mistakes drifts into a blame game rather than distilling the lessons of what to do next.
So what do you think then the focus of this dialogue needs to be? Because there's an argument that, as you indicate, we have diagnosed, we know what the issues are. Isn't it then the responsibility of the politicians that we've elected into power to come up with the solutions, as they promised during their election campaigns?
Yeah, I think that it is a responsibility of the politicians, but I think that the democracy that we dreamt of when we came to 94 was to take that formal structure and make it deeper and participatory from the people point of view. And I think there is a disjuncture between those who are holding political office and the people on the ground. So I think that this process needs to address that. But in order to address that, of course, it must allow the people to articulate their grievances and their vision. But I think it has to change the mindset by asking them, given your grievances now, what are the solutions that you are advocating? Because what happens, Clement, is that each of us interest group only put a solution that's for our own interest. We never take that interest and say, solving it this way will also help the national interest. And by national interest, I mean, is it going to help to reduce inequality? Is it going to deepen non-racialism? It is going to bring about gender equality. Is it going to deepen our democracy? That is the test that you have to put, whether the interest that you are advocating for yourself or your group fits into the larger interest.
Yeah.
So we need that mindset change. And I think that it's going to happen, the dialogue. Our duty is now, how do we make sure that it produces the outcomes that are beneficial?
Yeah.
And again, I think South Africans have a disease. We like a holistic solution right across the board. Whereas we need to put that broad vision and say, what are the 2-3 steps that we need to take now?
Yeah.
Because once we take those steps and move forward, then you will build a momentum where people begin to get hope.
Is there space for accountability as we talk about this national dialogue? Because it's almost like you still have people who have set the house on fire coming back as part of the fire brigade to extinguish the fire. So is there an opportunity there for accountability? Because, I mean, South Africans, I'm sure some of them will ask themselves, but here you are asking us for solutions, and yet you are the same people that set this house on fire. So what accountability then do you take?
That's the nature of this social change, that people who are the causes of the problem have to be the people who are part of the solution. Because we want to build an inclusive society.
As long as they take accountability.
As long as and what is important for us to realize is that the architecture of our democracy is so crucial. Because till now, with all those problems, what has emerged is that the checks and balances have begun to bite and begun to work. Not sufficiently. I think it is one of the problems, and that is the fact that the state capacity has got to be built. And in building that state capacity, you need to separate political party positions held through elections and the state structure, the machinery of the state. Right. So these are the issues that arise. They are part of the lessons. And I think if we look around the world, we will see that we need to carve something that really deepens what we've got. We've had, for example, we've had a public protector institution. Under one public protector, it worked fantastically. And under another, it was a disaster. What does that tell us? It tells us that all of these checks and balances are centers of power, and in each one of them, there is a potential to abuse it. And the checks and balances are not just within that institution, they are from outside that institution. So if you take the political parties, take the ANC, been in power, it is grappling with and seized with problems. That's not new. The ANC has had problems throughout its history. It has had to renew itself. But we now see that the renewal in this democracy is not going to happen solely from within the ANC. It needs a pressure from within and it needs a pressure from outside. Right? Without those two pressures, change won't happen.
What's the threshold, though, for that change to happen? Because the pressure from the outside has been there. But also, you would argue that the pressure from the inside has also been there. I mean, there have been veterans of the ANC. I remember the 101 veterans who were trying to speak out and say, we are not happy with the state of the organization. There are civil society organizations, a lot of South Africans as well, ordinary, that have come out to say, this is not okay. So I'm trying to understand, at what point is the ANC going to be satisfied with the threshold of the outrage and then say, this is where we say renewal is so significant and has to be implemented?
I hope that we have passed the moment where we have reached that threshold, because I think South Africa is at a critical space. And I hope, as a member of the ANC lifelong, I hope that that renewal can happen in the ANC. But if it doesn't happen, Clemens, the way forward in the solutions, while making people pull together with their contradictory interests, is to experiment with how to make people at the community level hold us accountable. And at that community level, I'll give you an example. In 2008, the government of the day created ward councils. It's supposed to be an instrument of the community, irrespective of the political parties to which the members belong. But what has happened is it became an instrument of political parties. Now, we have to learn from that. And I think that the crisis of the ANC is because it also entered this democracy. Unclear whether it is still a liberation movement or now a political party in a formal democratic sense. And it has been grappling with that problem. Every now and then it drifts into thinking it's a liberation movement.
And you know what happens to liberation movements on the continent, right?
So it is those perceptions that I'm hoping will come through. But I'm hoping that it is not going to be sticking at just accountability. I think we have to change the mindset where we have to say, here's a problem, what is the solution? Can we agree it is a solution good for everybody?
Is the GNU in a position to help steer us into this next chapter of our democracy? In your
I think, Clemens, we have to accept that the idea of coalitions is here to stay. How those coalitions function, what form they take, is going to have to adapt to the circumstances. The GNU was a very important development because the sense after the elections was that South Africa is now going nowhere. And fortunately, the concept was put forward with saying, here is our basic position. All those who agree with it are welcome to join. There was no forcing anybody into it. And there was no horse trading and sticking there. I would hope that we learn from it, and the next rounds of the GNU will have public agreements and commitment, will be followed up with agreements on sectors, what to do, and will account annually, not just in Parliament, but at the community level, so that the community begins to feel they have some ownership.
How worried do you think South Africans need to be about these claims and counterclaims from the top echelons of the SAPS? I'm sure you've seen the allegations the KZN Provincial Commissioner has made. It's been allegations and counter-allegations, and a lot of South Africans are concerned about their safety. When you have top officials of the SAPS fighting like that, you do worry about safety and security, and whether our security apparatus are being politicized and compromised. There is an inquiry now that the president has established. Do you think that's the best way to go? And how worried do we need to be? You've been in government, you've said, you've seen these things before.
I certainly am very worried. I'm worried because the allegations have been made. And they've been made and counter-allegations by people who are occupying positions in the SAPS. And I think this is a dangerous kind of moment. I think coming from law officers making allegations without yet substantiating them and welcoming the necessity to substantiate because we would like to know the truth. And I think that whilst the issue is serious and scary, I think the necessity to have a proper process unearth it, what is the truth, is absolutely necessary. Because I think there is a danger if we act in a knee-jerk fashion. We've seen this in the July unrest and so-called attempted insurrection. If you look at what happened there, it's not the looting of the shops that worried me. It was the fact that buried in it was the attempt to cripple South Africa's export-import route, both the rail, the road, and the ports. Now, that indicated an element of insurrection. Right. But it also tried to capitalize on creating chaos. And I think South Africa is always in danger if we allow anarchy and chaos to take reign.
What are your hopes for this country and where we're heading?
Clemens, as a revolutionary, I don't think one cannot be anything but an optimist. The difference about the optimism that I express is that if you want to be a revolutionary, and you have to be an optimist, but you have to put your shoulder to the wheel. And you have to take responsibility. I think that's the lesson of Madiba, that he never shirked from taking responsibility for the consequences that arose from the decisions we took. He was in prison when Operation Maibuya was developed. But when he appeared in the Rivonia trial, he said to his fellow accused, I have a responsibility to explain to the public and the court the ANC, the relationship to MK, and the other comrades said, but you were not there when Operation Maibuya was. He says, but I founded it. I have that responsibility. That is how he made a speech which became the 21st century's landmark speech, because he took responsibility. And I think that is what we need in every area of our life. In every sector, whether it's in culture, whether it's in sport, whether it's in business, whether it's in broadcasting.
Mr. Maharaj, thank you so much. I hope that all of us can take heed and listen to your wise words. I really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Thanks for watching. Cheers.